What if the way you live today quietly echoed into the next 10 years of your life? Not in the loud moments, but in the small ones. The way you wake up, the way you respond when no one's watching, the way you speak to yourself in silence. Most people search for success in distant goals and future breakthroughs. But the truth is, you are already rehearsing your future every single day, not through what you say you want, but through what you consistently do. Success does not arrive with applause. It grows in the background, rooted in repetition, discipline, and direction. Your habits are not just routines, they are blueprints. And every day you act without clarity or drift without intention, you're still building something. The question is, are you building a life you will respect, or one you will quietly resent? In this episode, we'll explore 12 timeless principles drawn from Stoic wisdom to help you turn your daily rhythm into a foundation for purpose, presence, and personal power. Take a breath. Pay attention. What you do next might not feel dramatic, but it could change everything. Stay with me. The life you're seeking may already be hidden in how you live today. 1. Your future is hidden in what you do daily. Have you ever paused, truly paused, and asked yourself, what am I building with today? Not next week, not when things finally settle down, but right now, with the thoughts I choose to believe, with the distractions I choose to tolerate, with the habits I repeat without resistance. It's tempting to think life changes in a single grand moment. We're told to wait for the perfect opportunity, the right time, the stroke of luck, or lightning bolt of motivation. But real life isn't a movie. It doesn't change in climaxes. It changes in routines. And those routines? They start before you even realize it. In the way you respond to your alarm, in the way you treat your first hour, in the things you tolerate from yourself. Stoicism teaches that your power is always in the present moment. Epictetus said, "First say to yourself what you would be, then do what you have to do." Not once, every day, quietly, without applause, without permission. That is how real change happens, not in bursts, but in rhythm. Most people don't fail because they lack ambition. They fail because they never align their actions with their ambition. They dream of a powerful future, but their days are weak. Their mornings are scattered. Their choices are inconsistent. And still, they wonder why nothing changes. But here's the truth. Your future is already unfolding right now. Not because of some grand fate, but because of the habits you carry forward. The life you live tomorrow is being shaped by the thoughts you accept and the standards you enforce today. It doesn't matter what you hope for if your behavior contradicts it. Think about it. What did you do this morning? Did you move your body? Did you focus your mind? Or did you reach for your phone and let the outside world dictate your first thoughts? These tiny choices seem unimportant, but they're not. They're everything. They compound, they accumulate, and they either bring you closer to the man you want to become or deeper into the life you claim to want to escape. We idolize transformation, but real transformation is not an event. It's a commitment to discipline in the mundane. It's choosing growth even when no one is watching. It's learning to love the process not because it's exciting, but because it's honest. There is no transformation without repetition. There is no success without structure. There is no strength without struggle. And here's where most people get stuck. They want change to feel magical. They want it to feel like a breakthrough, but it doesn't. It feels boring, quiet, ordinary. No one throws you a party for showing up to do the hard thing for the 5th day in a row. No one sees the internal war you win by choosing focus over distraction, but the compound effect sees it, and it never misses. Every small decision is a signal. Every repeated behavior is a vote, not to society, but to yourself. Every time you get up early instead of sleeping in, you cast a vote for discipline. Every time you say no to distraction, you vote for clarity. Every time you train when it's hard, you vote for grit. These votes shape identity, and identity shapes destiny. So the real question is not, what do I want to achieve someday? The real question is, what am I rehearsing today? Because you are rehearsing. Whether you're aware of it or not, your days are training you. Your actions are building a version of you that will one day become automatic. Is it a version you're proud of? Here's the deeper Stoic truth. Your life is not waiting to begin. It already has. There is no later. There is no finish line where everything magically makes sense. There is only the now, how you live it, how you defend it, how you choose to invest it. And the ones who understand this don't chase motivation. They build momentum. Your life reflects your rituals. You don't become disciplined in a moment of willpower. You become disciplined by protecting the time you usually waste. You design your days like a craftsman, not a consumer. And over time, the way you live becomes the evidence of what you truly value. Take a look at your calendar, not your dreams, your calendar. That is where the truth lives. That is where your real priorities breathe. Do you create time for what matters? Or are you constantly reacting to what doesn't? Because if your time is constantly hijacked by the urgent, the shallow, the distracting, don't be surprised when your future feels unrecognizable. You want clarity? Start by owning your hours. Protect your mornings. Use the first hour to direct your mind, not to catch up, but to build. Create before you consume. Move your body before you scroll. Ask yourself, what am I training myself to tolerate? Because that answer will shape the next 5 years of your life. Marcus Aurelius said, "The happiness of your life depends upon the quality of your thoughts." But I would add, the quality of your thoughts depends on what you practice. You don't think like a Stoic by reading a quote. You think like a Stoic by living like one. That means choosing stillness when the world demands reaction. It means choosing order when the day tempts you with chaos. It means choosing responsibility when excuses feel easier. Your future doesn't care about how inspired you are. It cares about what you repeat. And most of what you repeat is not conscious, it's habitual. So, if you want different results, don't set a bigger goal. Build a stronger system, one that is rooted in clarity, in rhythm, in small daily victories that reinforce your identity. Start with 1 hour, one habit, one decision. Choose one part of your day and elevate it. Instead of passive consumption, choose deliberate creation. Instead of emotional reaction, choose thoughtful response. Instead of waiting for a better season, choose to build one. You won't feel a massive shift overnight. That's not how real growth works. But you will feel something subtler and far more powerful. You'll feel momentum. You'll feel alignment. You'll feel a quiet sense of peace that comes from knowing that even when no one is watching, you are moving with integrity. And that is the greatest form of confidence, not the loud, boastful kind, but the grounded, silent kind that comes from living in alignment with your values. That kind of confidence doesn't need to be seen. It simply builds, quietly, daily, deliberately. So take a breath. Look at your habits. Look at your rituals, not with judgment, but with honesty. Are they leading you where you want to go? If not, you don't need a new plan. You need a new pattern. You need to reclaim your day before your distractions do. Because whether you notice or not, something is shaping you. The question is, will it be your standards or your default settings? The Stoics believed that greatness was not found in special moments, but in consistent effort, in the courage to show up, again and again, without needing applause. That courage is already within you. It always has been. The only thing left to decide is what you'll do with it today. And that's where we go next. Because once you understand that your habits are not just actions, but identity in motion, the next step becomes clear. It's time to train them with intention. 2. Win the morning, win the day. How you begin is how you build. Before the notifications, before the pressure, before anyone else even knows you're awake, there's a sacred window of time that belongs entirely to you. Most people sleep through it, not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, spiritually. They wake up already behind, already pulled into the noise, already reacting. But the Stoic understands that first hour isn't just time, it's direction. And if you're not the one choosing it, someone else will. So, let me ask you, how do you begin your day? More importantly, who are you becoming in that beginning? The first moments after you open your eyes are not neutral, they're not passive, they set a tone. A man who starts his day with intention carries that clarity forward into every decision. A man who wakes up scattered, distracted, consumed by urgency, he spends the rest of his day in recovery mode, trying to catch up to himself. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "When you arise in the morning, think of what a privilege it is to be alive, to think, to enjoy, to love." That wasn't just poetic. It was practical. It was a reminder that the morning is a gift, a reset, a place to begin again. And yet most people squander it. They roll over and reach for a device before they've even reached for a thought of their own. They allow the outside world to dictate their mood before they've even set a direction for their mind. But you are not most people. You are here to take ownership. Imagine your morning like a mental training ground. Before the world places demands on you, you have a chance to shape your own energy. You have a chance to affirm your values, move your body, breathe, think clearly. You have a chance to build strength before stress arrives, to cultivate stillness before chaos even knocks. It doesn't need to be elaborate, it needs to be intentional. Winning the morning doesn't mean waking up at 4 a.m. just because a billionaire on the internet said so. It doesn't mean stuffing your schedule with 10 life hacks before sunrise. It means asking a simple question. What do I need to feel strong, grounded, and focused before the world touches me? Maybe it's silence. Maybe it's breathwork, or reading, or walking outside. Maybe it's journaling, stretching, or just drinking water with awareness instead of distraction. Whatever it is, it needs to be something that pulls you inward, something that connects you to yourself, your values, your intention. This is not about productivity, it's about sovereignty. Because the moment you wake up, the battle for your mind begins. And every notification, every headline, every obligation that pulls you into reaction is a vote against your inner peace. Most people give their power away before they've even left their bed, but the Stoic guards that first hour like a lion, because he knows, if you can hold the morning, you can hold the day. So here's a practical shift. Don't just wake up, rise with clarity. Don't just check in, reflect. Don't just scroll, set direction. Train your nervous system to begin in stillness. Give your mind space to think before it's asked to perform. When your mornings are rooted, your reactions throughout the day soften. You become less reactive, more responsive, less frantic, more focused. And it's not about the length of time, it's about the quality of intention. A calm morning becomes the soil from which all other decisions grow. You'll notice it in the way you speak, in the way you breathe during difficult moments, in the way you choose your priorities instead of letting them choose you. And if you're someone who says, "I don't have time in the morning," ask yourself this. What kind of life am I designing if I can't carve out 20 minutes for my own alignment? Because it's not about time, it's about intention. We all start the day with the same hours. The difference is who leads those hours and who gets led by them. When you wake up and immediately react, emails, messages, noise, you're starting your day on someone else's agenda. You're giving away the wheel of your own mind. But when you start with clarity, you reclaim the steering wheel. You say, I choose the tone, I choose the rhythm, I choose who I will be today. And that kind of choice rewires you, because routines are not just about organization, they are rituals. And rituals train more than your habits. They train your identity. Every morning you act with clarity is one more repetition in becoming a man of direction, a man of stillness, a man who responds rather than reacts. And the more you return to that practice, the more it becomes who you are, even when life gets chaotic. I want you to think back to a time when your day spiraled. Maybe it was stress, maybe it was anger, maybe it was distraction. Now ask yourself, did that day start with intention or with reaction? Did it begin in your hands or in the hands of everything around you? That's the gift of the morning. It's a rare moment of total ownership. Before you check in with the world, you check in with yourself. Before you run, you root. Before you perform, you prepare. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire. He faced political upheaval, war, betrayal. Yet he still reminded himself to begin each day with gratitude, with perspective, with discipline. He didn't have to do that, but he chose to, because he knew the way you begin is the way you continue, and the way you continue is the way you live. So tomorrow, when your alarm goes off, don't just get up, rise with awareness. Don't chase motivation, chase rhythm. Set a tone, not for perfection, but for presence. It could be 10 minutes of stillness, a page in your journal, a stretch, a slow walk, a glass of water in silence. What you do doesn't matter nearly as much as why you do it. If your why is rooted in self-respect and clarity, then even the smallest act becomes sacred. You're not performing for the world, you're preparing to meet it, strong, still, centered. And if you fall off, if you miss a day, don't spiral, return. That's part of the training too. To notice without judgment, to begin again without shame. Every morning is a second chance. Use it, because the future doesn't begin someday. It begins in the first 5 minutes you're awake, and you have more control than you think. So ask yourself, not just once, but every morning, will I lead this day, or will I let it lead me? Will I begin with strength, or surrender my peace before I've even stepped out of bed? And most of all, am I willing to protect this time like it matters? Because it does. It matters more than you know. The quality of your morning determines the quality of your mindset. And your mindset, repeated day after day, becomes your life. Which brings us to the next shift. Once your day begins with clarity, the next step is to master the space between thoughts, because how you speak to yourself, especially in quiet moments, is where your real power begins. 3. Discipline is stronger than motivation. What do you do when you don't feel like doing anything? When it's cold outside, when your body's tired, when your emotions say no, and your mind looks for every excuse to justify comfort? That moment, the one where it's easier to quit than to show up, is the moment your future is decided. Not when you're inspired, not when everything is aligned, but right there, in the quiet tension between what you want and what you said you would do. Most people build their lives around feelings. They wait for motivation like it's some divine force that will knock on their door and carry them into greatness. They want the right playlist, the right lighting, the perfect mood. They think motivation is the engine, but motivation is just the spark, and sparks fade. If you want to build something that lasts, you need something sturdier. you need discipline. Discipline is not dramatic. It doesn't feel heroic. It doesn't always look impressive. But that's what makes it powerful. Discipline doesn't ask how you feel. It asks what matters. It shows up every single time, whether you're excited or not, whether it's convenient or not, whether anyone is watching or not. Seneca once wrote, "We suffer more in imagination than in reality." That quote holds more truth than most people want to admit. We imagine that doing the hard thing will break us, that waking up early will destroy our energy, that staying consistent will burn us out. But most of that fear exists in our heads, not in the actual moment. The weight of action is lighter than the weight of avoidance. Think about the last time you didn't feel like doing something important. Maybe it was a workout, a difficult conversation, a few hours of deep focus, and then think about how you felt afterward. You didn't just get the task done, you regained control of yourself. And that's the hidden power of discipline. Every time you push through resistance, you don't just move forward, you strengthen your identity. Discipline is not about being rigid. It's about being reliable. It's not about forcing your way through life like a machine. It's about building systems that support your purpose. Systems that protect your values from the unpredictability of emotion, because emotions are waves. Discipline is the anchor. And here's where Stoicism becomes essential. The Stoics taught that our power lies in how we respond to the world, not how the world treats us. They didn't seek to eliminate all emotion. They sought to master it, to live by principles, not passing moods. That's discipline, choosing structure over impulse, choosing clarity over chaos, choosing what's right even when it's uncomfortable. But this doesn't happen overnight. It's built slowly, patiently, in the ordinary days when nothing special happens and no one is watching. Those days are your training ground. And the beauty is, you don't need to feel like it. You just need to begin. One small act of follow-through, one decision to honor your word. That's enough. Because the second you act, you shift the narrative. You remind yourself, I am not a slave to my mood. I'm the builder of my character. Discipline is freedom. It may not feel like it in the beginning. At first, it feels like sacrifice, like effort, like restraint. But over time, it becomes stability, peace, direction. While others ride the roller coaster of emotion, you walk with steadiness. Not because it's easy, but because it's chosen. And that choice compounds. Let's take a simple example. Someone who wants to write every morning. On day 1, they feel inspired. Day 2, they're tired. Day 3, they're distracted. By day 5, they stop altogether, unless they've built a system that makes showing up non-negotiable. A system that says, this isn't about how I feel today. It's about the person I said I want to become. Over weeks, the writing doesn't just improve, the writer transforms, because they're no longer chasing motivation. They've built trust with themselves. That's what most people lack. Not talent, not time, but trust. They don't trust themselves to follow through, and the only way to build that trust is through action, not big action, small, repeated action, done on the days when everything inside you says don't. Every time you do what you said you would, you shift your self-image. You're no longer someone who starts and stops. You're someone who follows through. That's the shift from hope to identity, from wishing to becoming. And let's be clear, discipline isn't cold or emotionless. It's deeply loving. Discipline says, I care about you enough to protect your future. It says, I respect you enough to stop letting your comfort sabotage your calling. That kind of love isn't soft. It's strong. It holds the line when everything else wants to bend. Over time, routines become rituals. Habits become part of who you are. The decision to show up becomes automatic. You no longer waste energy debating whether you should do it. You just do it because it's who you are now. This is why the Stoics spoke so often about alignment between what you say, what you believe, and what you do. That's the core of integrity, and discipline is the thread that ties it all together. When you build your life around discipline, you gain more than results. You gain peace. You don't have to wonder who you are anymore. You don't have to second-guess your strength. You become someone who can be counted on, especially by yourself. And if that sounds like pressure, think of the alternative. Living a life where you can't trust your own promises, where you wake up every day hoping you feel good enough to act. That's exhausting. That's what drains your confidence. Discipline does the opposite. It replenishes it. So if you're tired of starting over, if you're tired of saying, "This time I mean it," then make a different kind of promise, a quieter one. Not to be perfect, just to be consistent, just to show up today. Not for results, but for alignment. Because the reward isn't just the outcome. The reward is becoming someone who honors their word. Someone who doesn't flinch when things get hard. Someone who can be trusted to carry weight by others, but more importantly, by themselves. That's the power of discipline. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't seek praise, but it builds a foundation so solid the storms of life can't shake it. So ask yourself this: what would my life look like if I simply did what I said I would? Not perfectly, just consistently. Not when I felt like it, but when it mattered. Because in the end, that's what separates the ones who dabble from the ones who rise. Not talent, not luck, but the simple, stubborn decision to keep showing up. And that's the next shift we'll explore, because once you start showing up consistently, you begin to recognize something even more powerful, that who you surround yourself with either strengthens your discipline or slowly steals it from you. 4. Your identity grows through repetition. Who are you becoming? Not who you want to be someday, not who you talk about in conversations, but who you're becoming right now, through the things you do when no one's watching, through the habits you repeat when there's no spotlight, through the quiet decisions you make on an ordinary day. Because identity isn't declared, it's built. It's not a statement, it's a system. And that system is made of repetition. It's easy to say, "I want to be more disciplined," or "I'm trying to be more confident." But the Stoics would ask, what are you actually doing consistently to become that man? Because talk is cheap, desire is fleeting. Repetition, on the other hand, is a force. Every time you do something, especially when it's hard, inconvenient, or invisible, you're not just completing a task, you're casting a vote. A silent but powerful message that says, "This is who I am now." Aristotle put it best: we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, then, is not an act, but a habit. The ancient philosophers understood what modern psychology confirms. Your brain doesn't care what you claim, it cares what you practice, and over time, what you practice becomes who you are. Think about the choices you made today. Did you move toward clarity or away from it? Did you lean into discomfort or retreat into habit? These small moments may seem forgettable, but they accumulate. You are not your potential. You are your patterns. You are not what you hope to do. You are what you consistently return to. Let's say you want to be someone who is focused. That identity isn't created by one deep work session. It's created by showing up to do hard things over and over, especially when distractions whisper that you deserve a break. If you want to be resilient, you don't wait to feel strong. You step into resistance daily, and strength follows. You want to be a calm person. Practice stillness every morning. Breathe. Observe your emotions without being consumed. That's how calm becomes a part of your nervous system, not just an idea in your journal. Most people focus on results. They chase numbers, milestones, and external signs of progress. But they miss the more important transformation, the internal one. Because if you achieve a goal without changing who you are in the process, you'll lose it just as quickly. But if your identity evolves, if you become the kind of person who lives in alignment, then the results take care of themselves. Let's make it real. Imagine someone who says they want to write a book. Most people approach that with intensity. They write for 8 hours on Sunday, feel proud, and then don't touch the project again for 3 weeks. But someone who writes for just 20 minutes a day, without drama, without excuse, without fanfare, that person is becoming a writer. Not because they said it, but because they proved it. And every day they return to that chair, their identity gets reinforced. This is the hidden power of repetition. It not only builds habits, it reshapes self-perception. And self-perception is everything. You act in accordance with who you believe you are. If you think you're inconsistent, you'll behave inconsistently. If you believe you're someone who always follows through, you'll live in a way that protects that belief. And the science supports this. Neuroscience shows us that repetition strengthens neural pathways. Every time you do something, especially when it aligns with your values, your brain wires it in a little deeper. Each choice to show up, even for 5 minutes, says, "I do what I say I will." You don't have to feel transformed for change to be happening. You just have to keep showing up. Here's where people go wrong. They wait. They wait until they feel ready to be confident, disciplined, focused. But identity doesn't lead action. Action leads identity. You don't wait until you believe in yourself to start. You start and belief follows. You don't become brave and then speak up. You speak up consistently, and one day you realize you've become brave. You don't wait to become fit before you train. You train, and your body begins to reflect your repetition. You don't become a leader and then lead. You lead in small, private, daily ways, and your influence grows. The Stoics understood that change doesn't begin with emotion. It begins with choice. Seneca wrote, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." And one of the greatest forms of waste is repeating patterns that don't align with who we want to be, because we never took ownership of what we're rehearsing. Yes, rehearsing, because that's what you're doing every day. Whether you know it or not, you're practicing something. Procrastination is a practice. Avoidance is a practice. Clarity is a practice. Stillness is a practice. You are always becoming. The only question is, are you becoming by design or by default? And the good news, you don't need to change everything overnight. That's the fantasy that leads to burnout and relapse. The Stoic path is quieter, simpler. You choose one habit that reflects your highest values, and you return to it with reverence. You protect it, you build around it, and slowly it becomes part of you. Maybe it's 10 minutes of meditation. Maybe it's writing a single sentence in your journal. Maybe it's putting your phone in another room when you work. These actions may look small, but they are declarations. They say, "I am not just reacting to life, I am rehearsing who I intend to be." And the more you rehearse, the more your world begins to reflect it. Not just because you're doing different things, but because you're becoming someone who expects different things. Someone who walks differently, thinks differently, decides differently. That's how transformation really works. Not through a single breakthrough, but through thousands of silent votes, silent acts of alignment, moments no one sees but you. And when you stack enough of those moments, your external world has no choice but to catch up with your internal reality. So if you're still wondering how to become the man you imagine, start here. Choose one action, one simple practice, something small enough to complete every day, but meaningful enough to shift your trajectory. Then return to it. Not because you feel like it, but because you're proving something deeper, that your identity is not stuck, that it is being shaped right now, one decision at a time. That's not just how habits are built. That's how character is forged. That's how purpose is lived. And that's the next step we'll explore, because once your identity is grounded, the challenge becomes learning how to guard it. Not just from distractions, but from the subtle pressure to become who the world wants you to be. 5. Your habits determine your level, not your goals. Let's talk honestly. What if the future you want isn't waiting for a better vision, a stronger mindset, or more motivation? What if it's just waiting for more consistency, more structure, more ordinary, repeated action? We too live in a culture obsessed with goals, vision boards, 5-year plans, big declarations of who we want to become. And there's nothing wrong with having ambition, but ambition without alignment is fantasy. Because goals might set your direction, but only your habits can carry you there. A goal is a destination, but habits, those are the vehicle. They are the road beneath your feet. They are the quiet, unglamorous work that moves you forward, one decision at a time. And if your daily actions don't reflect your goals, you're not aiming high, you're just daydreaming. Lao Tzu once said, "Do the difficult things while they are easy, and do the great things while they are small." That's the truth most people miss. We think greatness lives in breakthrough moments, in once-in-a-lifetime chances, in the dramatic push. But it doesn't. Greatness lives in repetition, in clarity, in the ordinary. The person who shows up to the basics every day, who respects the quiet power of systems, will outperform the person with the boldest goals but no foundation. We admire people for their achievements, but when you look closer, when you really study them, it's rarely some extraordinary talent that makes the difference. It's structure. It's the way they treat their time. It's the morning routine they've protected. The way they eat, sleep, speak, think. It's the small commitments they've kept to themselves long before anyone else noticed. They've trained themselves to do what matters, whether they feel like it or not. That's the real advantage. And yet, most people get stuck chasing louder goals instead of quieter systems. They believe that a new planner or a more inspiring podcast will change their life. But nothing changes until their behavior changes, until their calendar changes, until their habits begin to reflect the identity they're trying to build. The Stoics understood this deeply. Marcus Aurelius didn't just write about virtue, he practiced it daily in the way he led, the way he thought, the way he responded to setbacks. He didn't wait for motivation. He lived by rhythm. He didn't get carried away by results. He focused on the process. Because success isn't about how high you aim, it's about how deeply you build. And that means your life isn't measured by what you intend to do. It's measured by what you consistently return to. Think of it like this. If you want to become a writer, but you don't write most days, you're not building the identity. If you want to become fit, but your actions only align with that desire a few times a month, you're not reinforcing the habit. Your goals may be valid, they may be inspiring, but if your routines don't support them, you'll always feel the gap between your vision and your reality. And that gap creates frustration, not because you're not capable, but because your system is leaking energy. You're spending more time thinking about change than living it. So, what do? You start by coming back to the basics. Strip away the noise. Forget the fancy life hacks. Ask yourself, what are the 3 to 5 things I need to do daily to stay aligned with my highest self? It could be movement, silence, reading, focused work, honest reflection, sleep, nutrition, boundaries. Whatever they are, they become sacred. You don't need 100 new habits. You need a handful of essential ones practiced with reverence. Not perfectly, but repeatedly. You want to meditate every morning. Then set a cue. Make it automatic. Let it become a ritual, not a task. Because when habits become identity, discipline becomes easier. You're no longer deciding whether to do it. You just do it. Because it's who you are. And this is where so many get lost. They think the solution is a new project, a new direction, a more inspiring why. But often, the solution is repetition, doing the right things again and again, until they stop feeling like effort and start feeling like truth. Let's take a practical example. You have a goal to improve your focus. That's great. But what are your habits? Are you guarding your environment from distraction? Are you starting your day with clarity or with noise? Are you scheduling blocks of deep work or just hoping to find time? The system matters more than the wish, because it's not the size of your dream that determines your progress. It's the consistency of your discipline. Here's a powerful Stoic shift. Stop asking, how can I get more motivated? And start asking, what system would make this inevitable? If you want to read more, make books visible, accessible. Make screens less attractive in your environment. If you want to eat better, prepare your environment to reflect that. If you want to train regularly, put your gear where you can't ignore it. Systems are about removing friction, about making the right choice the easy choice. And that doesn't happen through inspiration. It happens through intention. You don't rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the strength of your routines. And if your routines are weak, life will always feel like a struggle. Not because you're weak, but because your systems are leaking energy, and decision fatigue is slowly pulling you under. But when your routines are strong, when your days are built with alignment, you don't have to rely on willpower. You rely on rhythm, on design, on the power of structure. And that structure doesn't trap you, it frees you. Because here's the truth, freedom is not doing whatever you feel like. Freedom is knowing that your life is moving in the direction of your values. That you're not being pulled by emotion or randomness, but guided by intention. And that freedom is earned through habit, through repetition, through quiet, steady effort. So if you're not where you want to be, don't panic. Don't throw out your dreams, but stop obsessing over the end result. Start looking at the process. Look at your mornings, your choices when you're tired, the way you handle distractions, the way you spend the invisible hours, and then ask, is my system designed to support who I'm becoming? If not, it's not the goal that needs changing. It's the process. It's the architecture of your day, the scaffolding of your behavior. Because success isn't a place you arrive at. It's a threshold you cross, over and over, every time you return to the habits that reflect your highest standard. And over time, those moments of alignment stack. They turn into confidence, character, results. Your goals might inspire you, but it's your habits that will define you. And that leads us to the next shift, because once you've built strong systems on the outside, you must learn to protect them from sabotage on the inside. And that starts with mastering your self-talk, your emotional discipline, and your ability to lead yourself when no one else is watching. 6. Plan with intention or drift with distraction. Have you ever looked back on your day, phone battery drained, mind restless, to-do list still echoing with unchecked boxes, and wondered, What did I actually accomplish? Not in terms of how many things you touched, replied to, or half finished, but in terms of what truly mattered. Did today bring you closer to who you want to be, or did it simply move you in circles? It's a subtle kind of exhaustion, not the kind that comes from deep, purposeful labor, but the kind that comes from mental erosion, spending the day reacting, checking, jumping from tab to tab, from app to app, from urgency to urgency. You were moving, yes, but were you moving forward? Or just moving? This is the quiet war you wake up to each morning. On one side, there's intention, clarity, purpose, deep work, personal alignment. On the other side, distraction, noise, obligation, the pressure to be everywhere but here. And the truth is brutal. If you don't decide how your day will go, the world will decide for you, and it rarely chooses in your favor. Carl Jung warned us plainly, you are what you do, not what you say you'll do. That one line strips away every excuse. You can have the best plans, the highest standards, the most inspiring goals, but if they never touch your actual behavior, they mean nothing. Your identity isn't shaped by what you intend to do someday. It's shaped by what you make space for today. That's what it means to plan with intention, not perfection, not productivity for its own sake, but presence, prioritization, conscious design. Because the modern world doesn't just distract you, it convinces you that distraction is meaningful. It rewards busyness, not depth. It celebrates multitasking, not mastery. But the Stoic knows motion is not the same as progress. You can spend 12 hours climbing a ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall. You can fill every block on your calendar only to notice that your spirit still feels empty. That's what happens when we trade intention for reaction, when we mistake movement for momentum. So how do we reclaim direction? We start by asking better questions. Instead of, what do I have to do today? Ask, what would it mean to move with purpose today? Instead of listing 10 tasks and drowning in overwhelm, choose 3 that actually reflect your values. Choose one that, if completed with full presence, would move your life meaningfully forward. Then protect it. Build your day around it. Not at the end when you're exhausted, but at the beginning when your focus is still within your control. That's not easy. Because distraction feels easier. It gives us a dopamine hit. It gives us an excuse. We scroll, we answer, we just check one more thing. And in doing so, we silently surrender the best parts of our day to things that do not serve us. Not all at once, but in 1,000 tiny cuts. One notification, one reply. 1 hour lost to a meeting that didn't need to happen, until we look up and realize we've been busy all day, and yet we've built nothing. The Stoics taught that the highest form of strength is self-mastery. And self-mastery begins with what you give your attention to. Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily that his time was short and sacred, that every morning was an opportunity to live with virtue or to fall into mindless habit. That's why intention isn't optional. It's essential. You don't land in a life of meaning by accident. You build it. And building requires structure. That doesn't mean rigidity. It means rhythm. A rhythm that centers you, that puts deep work before shallow tasks, that chooses creation over consumption, that remembers that presence isn't just a feeling, it's a discipline. And the simplest way to build that discipline, write it down. Every morning before the world reaches for you, reach for yourself. Ask what matters today, not just what's urgent, not just what's on your calendar, but what matters to the man you're becoming. Then write it. Keep it visible. That list becomes your compass. And here's the paradox. The more you simplify your priorities, the more powerful your day becomes. You don't need a 20-step productivity system. You need clarity. You need a list short enough to remember and meaningful enough to honor. You need the courage to say no, not just to others, but to yourself. To the lower version of you that wants comfort over progress, that wants noise over depth. Because make no mistake, distraction isn't just a passive force. It's a seduction. It wants you small, scattered, drifting. Why? Because drifting feels safe. When you drift, you don't have to face the pressure of building something real. You don't have to confront the resistance that always comes with meaningful work. But here's the cost: a life that looks full but feels hollow. A day that looks busy but ends in emptiness. So what's the antidote? Deliberate design. The willingness to confront your time before it disappears. The discipline to protect what matters most, especially from the parts of yourself that want to delay, distract, defer. Because if you don't protect it, no one else will. The world won't ask if you lived with intention. It will just take your hours, your attention, your focus, until all that's left is the feeling that something important got missed, but you're not sure what. And that's why planning with intention is not about control. It's about dignity. It's about honoring your limited time with meaningful structure. Not so you can do more, but so you can do what actually matters. So you can stop confusing activity with impact. So you can stop being available to everything and start being fully present to something. Because the truth is, your life will always reflect what you tolerate. If you tolerate drift, you'll drift. If you normalize reactivity, that's who you become. But if you choose clarity, even in small doses, you begin to build a rhythm that elevates your entire life. So, tomorrow morning, don't begin with your phone. Don't begin with the outside world. Begin with a question. What would it mean to move like I knew what mattered today? Then act on it. Not in theory, in structure, in time blocks, in protected hours, in single task focus. Let the world wait. Your purpose can't. That's how meaningful lives are built. Not by chance, but by courage. The courage to live on purpose when it would be easier to react. The courage to design each day like it matters, because it does. And that leads us to the next essential shift. Once you reclaim your time, you must learn how to protect your energy, and that begins with boundaries. Not just with others, but with your own habits. And that's where we're headed next. 7. Rituals create momentum. When life feels heavy, when your mind is cluttered and your energy barely flickers, what carries you forward? It's not excitement, it's not inspiration, and it's certainly not the illusion of constant motivation. It's something much quieter, much deeper. It's ritual. Ritual is what remains when everything else fades. The simple act you return to even when you don't feel like it, especially when you don't feel like it. Because momentum isn't something that shows up and carries you. It's something you build deliberately, patiently, through consistent action. In a world of chaos and noise, ritual becomes your rhythm, not a performance, not a productivity trick, but a grounded return to self. James Clear said it best. You do not rise to the level of your goals. You fall to the level of your systems. That sentence strips away the myth of discipline as this grand act of willpower. Discipline isn't about heroic bursts of energy. It's about showing up for your ritual again and again until it becomes who you are. Because that's the truth most people miss. You don't shape your character in the peak moments. You shape it in the space between, when the world isn't watching, when there's no pressure but also no excuse. That's where identity is forged. And ritual is the forge. Let's make it simple. A 5-minute meditation, a morning walk, a quiet cup of water before your coffee, 1 page in your journal before bed. These acts seem small, insignificant maybe, but repeated day after day, they become the architecture of your momentum. Each one is like a small drum beat, steady, unshaken, keeping tempo for your mind, your body, your spirit. And it adds up, because rituals remove friction. You don't have to argue with yourself every morning. You don't have to negotiate. You just do. Not because you're forcing it, but because it's part of you now. You've rehearsed it. You've chosen it enough times that it's become the path of least resistance. That's when the magic begins, not when something feels new, but when it becomes natural. Picture this. Every ritual you commit to is a rope you toss forward into your future. And every time you return to it, you pull yourself forward. Even if just an inch, even if just a breath, you're still moving. And over time, those inches become identity. Those repetitions become rhythm. That rhythm becomes momentum. Momentum is not about speed. It's about direction. And rituals give you direction, even when motivation disappears. Because motivation is seasonal, but ritual is foundational. You don't need a list of trendy habits. You don't need to copy someone else's morning routine. You need your rituals, the ones that center you, the ones that help you remember who you are when the world pulls you in 100 directions. Maybe it's journaling, maybe it's breathwork. Maybe it's 5 minutes of silence before the chaos begins. Whatever it is, make it yours. Start small, so small that you can't fail. 1 minute of stillness, 1 intentional action, and do it daily. Because frequency builds familiarity, and familiarity builds flow. You don't need to change your life overnight. You just need to change the way you begin your day, or end it, or carry it, with presence. And here's what people often forget. Rituals are not about what you do. They're about who you become through what you do. A person who protects their morning walk isn't just exercising. They're becoming someone who honors their body. Someone who ends each day in reflection isn't just writing. They're becoming someone who lives with awareness. That's identity. That's alignment. That's the point. In a distracted world, ritual is rebellion. It says, I refuse to live reactively. It says, I will not be shaped by randomness. It says, I choose order. I choose focus. I choose rhythm over noise. That kind of power isn't explosive. It doesn't look dramatic, but it's unshakable. It builds you from the inside out. And as those rituals begin to stack, one habit supporting another, one decision leading into the next, you begin to build momentum, not just in your day, but in your life. A kind of momentum that no longer needs to be pushed. It starts to pull you forward. It starts to carry you. That's when confidence grows, not from hype, but from harmony. You begin to trust yourself. You begin to look in the mirror and see someone who follows through. Not occasionally, not when it's convenient, but consistently. So pause and ask yourself, what are the rituals that hold me steady? Not the ones you wish you had, not the ones trending on your feed, but the ones that feel like home, the ones that ground you, the ones that help you lead yourself when everything else feels uncertain. Pick one, just one. Begin with that. A simple act, a gentle return. Then do it again tomorrow and the next day. Let it become a thread. Let that thread become a rope. And soon that rope will be your anchor, or your ladder, or your bridge. You don't have to do everything, but you have to do something. Something that speaks to your values. Something that reminds you, moment by moment, that you are not drifting. You are building, quietly, deliberately. And if this message resonates with you, drop a quick comment. My ritual. Anchor this mindset. Share it. Let it be real. And if you're ready to keep growing with intention, hit subscribe. Join the ones who choose rhythm over rush, who choose identity over impulse, who choose ritual over randomness. Because what you repeat becomes who you are. And once momentum is on your side, you no longer have to push. You begin to glide. And in that glide, we find our next lesson, that the true test of your power is not what you do when life is easy, but how you respond when people misunderstand your growth, when they challenge your pace, your silence, your standards. That's where we go next. 8. Protect what you feed your mind. If your thoughts shape your reality, and they do, then ask yourself this. What kind of reality are you quietly building with the information you consume every day? Most people are careful with their money. They lock their doors. They protect their schedule with calendars and apps. But their mind, they leave it wide open, unfiltered, unguarded, vulnerable to the noise of the world. They wake up and scroll through chaos before their feet even touch the floor. They absorb headlines designed to provoke, not inform. They internalize outrage, absorb comparison, swallow fear without question. And they wonder why they feel anxious, why they can't focus, why their motivation is thin and their peace always just out of reach. But here's a Stoic truth most people miss. Your mind is soil. What you plant there, deliberately or carelessly, will grow. Thoughts don't just float, they take root. They bloom into attitudes, into choices, into the tone of your entire life. And if you're not planting with intention, weeds will take over by default. Distraction, doubt, noise. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The things you think about determine the quality of your mind. Your soul takes on the color of your thoughts." That's not a metaphor. That's a warning, because your mind is not a passive container. It's a lens. It's a compass. It's the starting point of every action, reaction, and direction you take. And when that lens is covered in the fingerprints of everyone else's chaos, it becomes almost impossible to see clearly. We live in an age of overstimulation. Our attention is constantly under siege. And whether you notice it or not, the content you consume is shaping you. It's not just passing through. It's teaching you how to think, how to react, what to prioritize, what to fear. And if you're not careful, you begin to operate on borrowed thoughts. Someone else's agenda, someone else's emotion, someone else's framing of reality. Think about it. Every time you scroll without awareness, you're giving something away. You're handing over your mental clarity. You're surrendering your emotional space. You're trading stillness for stimulation. And that trade adds up, not all at once. But over time, it corrodes your ability to be fully present, fully rooted, fully yourself. You can't create anything meaningful from a mind that's constantly absorbing noise. You can't build inner peace on a foundation of reactive input. And you can't hear your own voice if you never make space for silence. So what does it mean to protect your mind? It doesn't mean hiding from the world. It means curating what you allow in. It means becoming more selective with your information diet than you are with your food. Ask yourself, who am I letting shape my worldview? Are they lifting me or limiting me? Do they challenge me to grow or trap me in loops of outrage, distraction, or self-doubt? It also means building boundaries, firm but quiet. Boundaries around your time, around your notifications, around your access points. You don't owe your mind to every message, every headline, every voice that wants your attention. The Stoics didn't scroll. They examined, they reflected, they asked, is this helping me become more just, more patient, more focused, more wise? And if the answer was no, they let it go. You can do the same. Maybe it starts with your morning, that first sacred hour of the day. No news, no messages, just you, your thoughts, your journal, your breath. That hour becomes a fortress, a space where only clarity is allowed in. Or maybe it starts with who you follow. Maybe it's choosing voices that challenge you with insight, not manipulate you with fear. Maybe it's turning off the noise for a while and turning inward. This isn't about being disconnected, it's about being deliberate. Stoicism never taught us to avoid reality. It taught us to meet it with reason, not reactivity. And that requires space. That requires clarity. That requires a mind that hasn't been hijacked before noon. Because over time, your mind becomes what you expose it to most. Not in some grand, dramatic way, but quietly, drop by drop, post by post, thought by thought. The ideas you allow to linger shape your perspective. The emotions you practice become your baseline. And the voices you listen to begin to echo inside you, even when you think you've tuned them out. So if you're serious about building a life with intention, you must get serious about guarding your mind, not with fear, with wisdom. You're not saying, I don't want to know what's happening. You're saying, I choose what gets to happen inside me. That's what real sovereignty looks like. That's how a Stoic protects their inner citadel, not by building walls, but by building discernment. And no, it doesn't require a total overhaul, just small acts of clarity, simple shifts in how you begin your day, in what you allow into your ears, in what you read before bed. These things matter, because over time they form the scaffolding of your self-respect. Ask yourself, what am I feeding my mind today? And is it aligned with the kind of life I say I want to build? Because when your inputs are intentional, your thoughts gain strength. Your emotions calm down, your focus sharpens, and your actions begin to reflect clarity, not confusion, purpose, not passivity. You are not powerless in this. You are not a victim of the algorithm. You are the gatekeeper, the curator, the architect of your inner world. And when you start acting like one, when you begin protecting your attention like it's sacred, because it is, everything begins to shift. Your clarity returns, your energy feels lighter, your creativity unlocks, and you start leading your life from the inside out, not the outside in. That is the Stoic way. That is how we reclaim not just our time, but our mind. And from that clarity, we step into our next challenge, because once you've learned to protect your peace internally, the question becomes how to guard it externally, especially in your relationships. And that's where we go next. 9. Busy is not the same as productive. Why is it that we've come to confuse exhaustion with progress? Somewhere along the line, we began wearing our busyness like a badge of honor. Look at my calendar, look at my inbox, look how little I sleep, look how much I'm doing. As if being constantly occupied were proof of purpose, as if being drained were a sign of discipline. But the truth? Busy is not the same as productive, not even close. You can spend the entire day in motion, responding, scheduling, multitasking, crossing off boxes, and still end the day exactly where you started, maybe even further from where you meant to go. Busyness tricks the mind because it feels like effort. It's loud, it's visible, it keeps you moving. But it's also frantic, reactive, disorganized. It gives the illusion of progress while pulling you away from what actually matters. True productivity, on the other hand, is quiet. It doesn't need to shout. It's rooted in clarity, not chaos. It's built on the foundation of intention, not activity, and it begins with a simple shift, from doing more to doing what matters. Seneca said, "It is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste a lot of it." That observation still holds sharp today. Because the real problem isn't that we don't have enough time, it's that we spend our time on the wrong things. We fill our days with motion instead of meaning. We answer every message, attend every meeting, chase every minor task, and then fall into bed, wondering why we still feel behind. That feeling isn't a lack of effort, it's a lack of alignment, and that's the danger of busyness. It feels noble, it gets praised. People admire your hustle. They applaud your responsiveness. They say you're dedicated, but none of that means you're actually moving in the direction of your purpose. In fact, sometimes it's the opposite. You're so caught up in reacting to everything around you that you stop steering your own path. So how do we escape this trap? It starts with asking better questions. Before the day begins, before the flood of demands comes crashing in, pause and ask, what really matters today? What would move the needle? What deserves my full attention, not just my leftover energy? Because if you don't define your priorities, someone else will, and the world. It's not interested in protecting your purpose. It's interested in your availability. It doesn't care what you value. It only cares how quickly you respond. But your job is not to be available to everything. It's to be intentional with a few things, the right things. Busy is reactive. Productive is proactive. One fills your time. The other moves your life. And if you don't reflect regularly, it's frighteningly easy to get swept up in the former, thinking that just because your day was full, your goals are closer. But that's a lie. A full calendar does not equal a full life. And being tired at the end of the day doesn't mean you accomplished anything real. Let's look at it practically. The most impactful work you do, the kind that actually shapes your future, is rarely urgent. It's rarely loud. It's not going to send you reminders or notifications. That kind of work lives in the quiet. It requires depth, focus, long-term thinking. It's the book you want to write, the business idea you've been postponing, the personal growth work you keep saying you'll start. These things matter deeply, but they don't scream for your attention, and so they get neglected. Pushed to the side by 100 tiny tasks that feel urgent but are ultimately unimportant. This is where most people live, rushing through days filled with low-impact activity, always feeling behind, never quite getting to the things that move them forward. So how do we shift? First, slow down. Yes, slow down. Not to become lazy, but to become deliberate. Create space in your day, not just to do, but to think, to evaluate, to ask, is this activity aligned with my values, with my purpose? Is it moving me forward or just keeping me busy? Protect time for deep work, not multitasking, not checking in. Deep, undistracted effort. Block it, guard it, make it a ritual. Because this is where the real progress lives, not in answering every email, but in making real progress on the thing that actually matters to you. Then simplify. Stop trying to do everything. Start focusing on the essential. Measure your day, not by how much you did, but by how much you moved in the right direction. That's productivity, and it often means doing less, but doing it with more presence, more power. Another practical shift: schedule thinking time, not just execution, thinking. Create blocks of time where you reflect on your direction, evaluate your systems, make strategic adjustments. Most people are so busy running, they never stop to ask if they're running the right race. Don't be one of them. And finally, redefine success. Stop chasing the approval that comes from being busy. Start seeking the quiet satisfaction that comes from being effective, from doing the work that matters, from staying true to your deeper priorities, even when no one sees it, even when no one praises it. Being busy will impress others. Being productive will change you. It will transform how you see time, how you see yourself, how you measure your progress. It will give you back control in a world designed to scatter your attention. So ask yourself tonight, not what did I check off, but what did I build? What did I strengthen? What did I move forward that matters a week from now, a month from now, a year from now? If the answer is unclear, that's not a failure. It's a signal, a chance to shift, a reminder that you don't need to run harder. You need to lead better. Because a life that feels full isn't created by rushing, it's created by rhythm. And rhythm comes from reflection, not reaction. And that reflection leads us into the next shift. Because once you understand that your energy is sacred and that clarity beats chaos every time, the next challenge is learning how to say no, not out of avoidance, but out of alignment. And we'll go there next. 10. Evenings are for reflection, not just rest. How do you end your day? For many people, the evening is a slow collapse, a quiet surrender to fatigue. They grab their phone, start scrolling, binge a show, drown the noise in their mind with more noise from the outside. And while that may look like rest, it's not always restorative. It's not always intentional. It's not always healing. Because not all rest is created equal. Some rest revives you, other rest merely numbs you. And that distinction matters because how you close your day is not just about recovery, it's about identity. It's a mirror. The habits you default to when the world goes quiet, the way you retreat into yourself after a long day, reveals more than you think. Are you using your evening to escape? Or to reflect? Are you hiding from yourself or returning to yourself? The Stoics believed that the end of the day was sacred. Epictetus urged us to examine your whole day, word for word, deed for deed, not to punish yourself, but to learn. Because wisdom isn't just gained through reading or experience, it's gained through reflection. As Confucius said, we may learn wisdom by 3 methods: by reflection, which is noblest, by imitation, which is easiest, and by experience, which is bitterest. And yet, reflection is what we neglect most. Why? Because slowing down is uncomfortable. Silence reveals the noise we've been pushing aside all day: regret, tension, questions we don't want to face. But that discomfort is not your enemy. It's your guide. It's your internal compass telling you where you're misaligned, what needs your attention, where you've drifted off course. That's the real power of evening reflection. It's not about replaying your failures or chasing perfection. It's about making contact with your life while it's still happening. Listening to what your day is trying to tell you. What patterns are starting to repeat? What emotions are lingering? What conversations didn't sit right? What parts of yourself showed up strong and what parts hid in the background? Without this practice, your days begin to blur. You run hard but feel directionless. You wake up tired not because your body didn't rest, but because your mind never cleared. The weight of one day spills into the next, and soon you're living in a fog, drifting through life without realizing it. But when you take even 5 minutes to pause, to sit with your thoughts, to write them down, to ask a few key questions, everything begins to shift. You start to reclaim your awareness. You begin to notice what really moves you and what quietly drains you. You start making better decisions, not from willpower, but from wisdom. Because now you're learning from your life, not just reacting to it. And here's what most people never realize. Your evening shapes your morning. The way you close today becomes the emotional and mental tone of tomorrow. Go to bed full of clutter, unresolved emotions, mental loops, and you'll wake up already behind, already weighed down. But go to bed with clarity, with intention, with a sense of release, and you give yourself the gift of a true reset. Reflection doesn't require a complex system. It requires honesty. You don't need a checklist with 50 prompts. You need a few grounding questions. Was I present today? What did I avoid that I know matters? What drained me? What energized me? What small thing am I proud of, even if no one else noticed? What do I want to do differently tomorrow? Write it down, not to document perfection, but to track your growth. To pay attention, to leave a breadcrumb trail back to yourself. Because that's what happens in the quiet space of evening. You begin to see the truth that was hidden in the noise. You begin to hear the whisper of your own wisdom. You start realizing that the things you postponed all day still sit quietly in the corner of your mind, waiting for your attention, not to judge, to guide. And sometimes the most powerful form of progress is simply noticing that you keep skipping the same habit, that you keep giving your energy to people or things that don't feed you, that your time is slipping into things that look productive but aren't. And in that noticing, you begin to change, not out of pressure, but out of alignment. Because that's what reflection really is, alignment. It's not about asking, was I perfect today? It's asking, was I honest? Did I move one step closer to the kind of person I want to be? Did I show up with integrity? These are the questions that change you, not in a single night, but over weeks, over seasons, over a lifetime. So make your evening a ritual. Light a candle, sit in silence, open your journal, reflect without filters. Let the day speak. Let your body speak. Let your conscience speak. You'll be surprised at what it tells you if you're still enough to listen, and you don't have to do it all. Just one question, one note, one small moment of awareness. That's enough to begin, because once you start closing your day with presence, you start living your life with more clarity. You fall asleep not in distraction, but in direction. And that kind of rest is rare. That kind of rest heals. And when your evenings become a space of reflection, your whole life becomes a mirror of growth. You start seeing the connections. You stop chasing shortcuts. You stop needing the world to affirm your path, because you're affirming it yourself, night after night, in the quiet work that no one sees, but that shapes everything. And from that quiet space of reflection, we arrive at the next realization. If each day begins and ends with you, then the only approval you truly need is your own. And that too is a kind of freedom we'll step into next. 11. Celebrate small wins. When was the last time you actually paused and gave yourself credit? Not for launching something massive, not for the applause-worthy achievements, but for the simple, quiet victories, for showing up when it would have been easier to hide, for choosing discipline over distraction, for saying no to what drains you and yes to what builds you, for taking one honest breath and doing the right thing, especially when no one was watching. We've been conditioned to believe that success only counts when it's dramatic, when it comes with fanfare, recognition, and milestones. But that's a trap, because the truth is, greatness rarely announces itself. It arrives in moments so small, they're easy to miss. But they matter. And they stack. The philosopher Friedrich Nietzsche once said, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." And that's true. But your why doesn't exist in isolation. It needs fuel. It needs signs that you're moving, evolving, shifting. And some of the strongest fuel is found in acknowledging progress, not someday, but now. Not when you've crossed the finish line, but when you've taken the next honest step forward. Celebrating small wins isn't vanity, it's reinforcement. Every time you notice that you've followed through on something, no matter how subtle, you tell your brain, "This is who I am now." You strengthen the identity of someone who keeps promises to themselves, someone who honors the path, not just the outcome. The problem is most people never stop moving long enough to see how far they've come. They finish one thing and immediately move the goalposts. They achieve something difficult and dismiss it as not enough. They're so focused on what's missing that they forget what's been built. And without recognition, even meaningful progress begins to feel hollow. And then momentum fades, because what you don't acknowledge starts to feel irrelevant. Even though deep down, you've been changing. You've been choosing better. You've been doing the work. But without reflection, it gets buried. It slips past your awareness. And what slips past your awareness never gets the chance to nourish your confidence. So start here. Celebrate the small things. Celebrate waking up without snoozing the alarm. Celebrate choosing water over scrolling. Celebrate that 1 hour of deep work when you could have just coasted. Celebrate the fact that you kept your word even when you were tired. Those moments are not small. They are the building blocks of who you're becoming. And no, celebration doesn't have to be loud. It doesn't need an audience. Sometimes it's just a breath, a hand on your chest, a quiet nod, a journal entry that says, "I'm proud of myself today." That's enough. That's powerful, because over time those moments form an emotional foundation. They become proof, not to others, but to yourself. Proof that you're evolving, that your discipline is real, that your progress isn't fiction, it's embodied. This is especially important if you're someone who's hard on themselves. If you're wired to push, to expect more, to raise the bar the second you reach it. That mindset can drive excellence, but it can also lead to burnout. Because you're never letting yourself rest in your own growth. You're always chasing, always behind. But you don't burn out from doing too much. You burn out from feeling like nothing you do is ever enough. That's the quiet tragedy of many high performers. They're always chasing their next level, never letting themselves feel the strength of the one they've built. So here's the antidote. Pause. Tonight, reflect not just on what's left undone, but on what you've already done. What did you handle today that your past self might have avoided? What choice did you make that your future self will thank you for? What old pattern did you disrupt, even slightly? That matters. And remember, transformation isn't a lightning strike. It's a slow accumulation of small, consistent steps, stacked in silence. The world may not clap for those steps, but that doesn't make them less real. That doesn't make them less worthy of recognition. Imagine a builder laying bricks, one by one, day after day. No audience, no applause, just a steady rhythm. From the outside, it looks like nothing is happening. But give it time, and one day that wall stands tall. That structure becomes shelter. That effort becomes legacy. You're doing the same, quietly, daily, through your choices, through your rituals, through your refusal to give up. So honor that. Don't wait for permission to feel proud. Don't wait until the end to celebrate. Because if you only allow joy at the finish line, you'll spend most of your life running without rest. Instead, let every honest effort be a reason to feel connected to your path. Let every act of discipline be a signal to your spirit that you're moving, you're growing, you're rising. And if it helps, ask yourself this question before bed. What did I do today that I wouldn't have done 6 months ago? That's progress. That's change. That's proof. So celebrate it. Not because it's flashy, but because it's real. And when you start living that way, when you stop waiting for the world to validate you and start recognizing your own evolution, you'll find that success stops feeling like some distant future. It starts feeling close, personal, present, because it's happening right now, one step at a time. And from this space of grounded self-respect, we arrive at a deeper question. Now that you've seen your own quiet strength, how do you design your days so they reflect that identity consistently? How do you shape your time so your growth is not accidental but intentional? That's what we explore next. 12. Design your days. Shape your life. If you don't shape your days, who will? It's a hard truth, but one that carries immense power the moment you stop resisting it. No one is coming to rescue your schedule. No one is going to hand you the blueprint to clarity or gift you with time that's protected from distractions. That job is yours, and that's not a burden. It's freedom, because the moment you take full responsibility for how you spend your time is the moment you begin to reclaim your life. Alan Watts once said, "The meaning of life is just to be alive." It is so plain and so obvious and so simple. And yet, everybody rushes around in a great panic. That panic, that constant motion, it doesn't come from lack of purpose. It comes from disconnection, from living on autopilot, from reacting to demands that don't reflect who you are or what you value. One day, you look up and realize you've built a life you never consciously chose. Not because you weren't trying, but because you never paused to ask, what do I want my days to feel like? Your daily routine isn't a prison, it's a palette. Every action, every decision is a brushstroke. The way you wake up, the way you move, the way you speak, reflect, engage with the world. These choices are strokes on the canvas of your life, and over time, they paint a picture. The question is, are you painting something intentional, or are you just scribbling, trying to keep busy? Designing your days means living on purpose, not by default. It means becoming brutally honest about what gives you energy and what steals it, about what aligns with your values and what drags you away from them. It means structuring your time not just around productivity, but around meaning, around presence, around internal clarity. A well-designed day doesn't just help you get things done, it helps you become who you are meant to be. It's not about squeezing in more tasks. It's about creating space. Space for reflection, for creation, for silence, for movement, for stillness, because a life of depth cannot be built in constant reaction. It needs rhythm. Start simple. Ask yourself, when do I feel most alive during the day? When is my mind sharpest? What activities drain me? Which ones bring me back to center? Build your routine around those answers. Protect your mornings like sacred ground. Schedule deep work for when your mind is clear. Block time for recovery, for thinking, for simply being. Say no more often. Say yes only when it's aligned. And give yourself permission to leave gaps. Not everything needs to be planned, but the core, the framework, that must be chosen. Because when you design your days with care, you feel your life slow down. Not because you're doing less, but because you're finally fully present in what you're doing. That's the paradox. The more intentional you are, the more stillness you feel, even in motion. You stop rushing through your hours and start experiencing them. You stop surviving your schedule and start steering it. It's no longer about controlling every minute. It's about reclaiming enough of them to shift your trajectory. When your days are shaped deliberately, your future stops being some vague dream. It becomes real, tangible, something you build, not someday, but now. With each morning you protect. Each moment you redirect, each evening you reflect. This is how Stoicism meets modern life. Not with grand philosophies shouted from mountaintops, but in the quiet decisions made before breakfast, in the rituals that ground you when no one's watching, in the discipline of asking, is this the best use of my energy? Does this reflect my values? Is this leading me toward or away from the person I want to become? And no, you don't need perfection. You need ownership. You don't need the perfect planner or the newest app. You need to care enough about your life to stop living by accident, to stop waiting for clarity to arrive and start designing space for it. Because purpose isn't found in isolation. It's found in repetition, in showing up again and again, even when the results aren't immediate. In honoring the small, unsexy moments that no one else sees, but that shape who you are. Success was never hiding in some distant destination. It was always here, in your habits, in your choices, in the architecture of your ordinary hours. When you look at your calendar, do you see alignment, or do you see noise? Do you see the bones of the life you want, or just placeholders filled with what's expected of you? That question matters, because how you spend your day is how you live your life. There's no separation, and the truth is, you don't build a life of purpose with declarations. You build it through discipline, through structure, through silence, through saying yes to the right things and no to the noise. Through choosing clarity over chaos, direction over distraction, systems over sentiment. This isn't about doing more, it's about becoming more grounded, more aware, more alive. And that kind of life doesn't shout, it whispers. Through your morning rituals, through the stillness you create, through the presence you bring to every task. It's not always exciting, but it's always powerful. So as you rise tomorrow, don't just ask what you have to do. Ask what kind of day you want to live, what kind of energy you want to carry, what kind of person you are choosing to become. Because your future isn't waiting, it's already being shaped, not in some grand, far-off event, but in the way you move through today. One habit at a time, one quiet decision, one breath of awareness. That's where alignment lives, and that's how a Stoic shapes their life, not by accident, but by design. The truth is, you're not waiting for your life to begin. You're shaping it with every quiet decision, every repeated action, every moment you choose presence over distraction. The only question is, which life are you rehearsing? One built on urgency and noise, or one rooted in rhythm, clarity, and self-respect? This wasn't a call to do more. It was a call to return to what matters, to slow down, take ownership, and remember that your future is being written in the structure of your days. If this message spoke to something in you, let it become more than just insight. Let it become a shift. Start small. One act of presence, 1 hour of intention. You don't need the perfect system. You need the courage to begin and the discipline to return. If you're walking this path too, subscribe and stay close. There's more ahead. And if a single line from today resonated with you, share it below with my daily rhythm so others can reflect with you. Your journey doesn't need permission. Just presence. I'll see you in the next episode where we keep building